What started as a peaceful evening took an unexpected and intense turn when Dwayne Johnson stood up for a helpless young boy, but what happened next will leave you speechless. Stay until the end to see how one act of courage can change everything. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in his place? Dwayne Johnson stepped out of McDonald's, a freshly wrapped burger in one hand and an ice-cold soda in the other. The warm evening breeze carried the familiar scent of fast food and asphalt as he took a deep breath, finally catching a moment of quiet after a long day of meetings and commitments. His towering frame cast a long shadow on the pavement as he made his way toward a bench near the parking lot, ready to enjoy a simple pleasure, a quick meal in peace. But as he rounded the corner of the building, something caught his eye. A young boy, no older than 8, sat hunched on the sidewalk's edge, his knees drawn up to his chest. His clothes were worn and dirty, his small hands clutched tightly around his arms as if trying to shield himself from a cold that wasn't there. The sight made Dwayne slow his steps, concern knitting his brow. There was something about the boy's posture, the way he seemed to shrink into himself, that hit deep. He didn't just look tired. He looked like someone carrying a burden far too heavy for his small shoulders. The boy briefly glanced up, his dark eyes locking with Dwayne's for just a second before darting away. There was wariness there. A guarded look, like he was used to people walking past him, ignoring him, or worse, treating him like nothing. Dwayne approached carefully, crouching down to the boy's level. "Hey, buddy," he said in a low, gentle voice. "You hungry?" The boy didn't answer right away. His eyes flickered toward the burger in Dwayne's hand, but he didn't reach for it. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Dwayne smiled and extended the burger toward him. "Go on, take it. Looks like you could use it more than me." For a moment, the boy stayed frozen, disbelief and hesitation flickering across his face. Then, slowly, he reached out and took the burger, gripping it like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you, sir," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Dwayne's smile widened. "No problem. Everyone needs a good burger now and then." Just as the boy was about to take a bite, the deep, growling roar of motorcycle engines shattered the calm evening air. Dwayne's head snapped toward the parking lot as 8 motorcycles rumbled in, their riders clad in black leather jackets covered in patches and emblems that screamed trouble. Laughter erupted from the group as they parked near the McDonald's entrance, their voices cutting through the night like knives. One of them, a big guy with a thick, bushy beard and a sneer, spotted Dwayne and the boy. His lips curled into an ugly grin. Well, look who we got here," he called out, loud enough for the whole lot to hear. "Ain't that Dwayne Johnson? The big movie star?" The others chuckled, their laughter growing louder as they sauntered toward them, spreading out in a loose, threatening circle. Dwayne straightened up slowly, instinctively positioning himself between the boy and the approaching men. His face stayed calm, but his eyes darkened with quiet intensity. "Yeah, it's me," he said evenly. "Can I help you with something?" The leader of the pack, a tall man with a shaved head and a deep scar running across his cheek, flashed a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Nah, champ, we don't need help," he said, his tone oozing fake friendliness. "We were just wondering what a big shot like you is doing hanging around with this." He gestured lazily at the boy, his voice dripping with contempt. Dwayne's jaw tightened. "Just sharing some food. No big deal." "Oh, it's a big deal all right," another biker chimed in, smirking. "Didn't know charity work was part of your act now. Feeding street rats, huh?" The boy flinched at the words, clutching the burger even tighter as if it might disappear. Dwayne placed a steady, reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Why don't you just keep walking?" Dwayne said, his voice firm but calm. "We're not bothering anyone." The leader let out a booming laugh. "Keep walking? Come on, Johnson, why don't you show us some of those wrestling moves you're so famous for? Or is all that just for show? You ain't so tough without the cameras rolling, are you?" The bikers' laughter grew louder, their taunts sharper, but Dwayne didn't take the bait. He remained silent, his muscles tensed, his mind calculating. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. Stay tuned to see how one moment of courage turned the tide in a way no one saw coming. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The bikers weren't getting the reaction they wanted, and frustration flickered across the leader's face. His eyes shifted from Dwayne to the boy, a wicked smirk curling on his lips. "Hey, kid, you got manners? You say thank you to your hero here," he sneered, but before the boy could respond, the biker snatched the burger from his hands. "Let's see what you're eating." His voice dripped with mockery as he inspected the burger, then, with deliberate cruelty, tossed it to the ground and crushed it beneath his boot, grinding it into the pavement with exaggerated force. "Oops. Looks like your dinner's ruined. Guess you'll have to find scraps somewhere else." The boy's eyes welled up with tears, but he bit his lip, refusing to let them fall. His small fists clenched at his sides, his shoulders shaking with the effort of holding it in. Dwayne's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as his hand curled into a fist at his side. He took a slow, measured step forward, his towering frame casting an imposing shadow over the leader. "Enough," Dwayne said, his voice low and firm, carrying a weight that silenced the murmurs around them. "You've made your point. Walk away." The leader's smirk only widened. He stepped closer, their chests nearly touching, his breath reeking of alcohol and smoke. "And what if we don't?" he sneered, his voice laced with amusement. "What are you gonna do about it, tough guy?" Dwayne didn't blink. His voice remained steady, controlled. "I'm asking you nicely. Don't make me regret it." The bikers exchanged glances, their smirks growing wider as they fed off each other's bravado. The leader let out a chuckle, then turned back to his crew. "Looks like Johnson thinks he can scare us," he called out. "What do you say, boys? Should we teach him a lesson?" A chorus of jeers erupted from the gang, their voices echoing in the night. The leader turned back to Dwayne, his grin full of malice. "Let's see what you really got, champ." Dwayne squared his shoulders, positioning himself protectively in front of the boy. His face remained calm, but his eyes burned with intensity. "You're about to find out." The air crackled with tension as the bikers began circling, their taunts growing louder, more aggressive. Dwayne stood still, unshaken, his focus locked on the leader. He knew words wouldn't diffuse this situation. The time for talking was over. The first biker lunged, his leather boots thudding against the pavement as he rushed forward with a wild grin, fists clenched, eyes filled with arrogance. He swung a punch aimed straight at Dwayne's jaw. Dwayne barely moved. With effortless precision, he sidestepped the blow, catching the biker's arm mid-swing. In one fluid motion, he twisted the arm behind the man's back and shoved him forward, sending him sprawling to the ground. Gasps rippled through the growing crowd in the parking lot. Phones were raised, capturing every moment. Some whispered in awe, recognizing the former wrestler and movie star. Others murmured in disbelief at the audacity of the bikers to pick a fight with someone like him. "You really want to do this?" Dwayne asked, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable warning. The remaining bikers hesitated, their bravado flickering with uncertainty. The leader, however, stepped forward, his scarred face twisting into a mocking sneer. "What's the matter, champ? Getting tired already?" he taunted. "That was just a warm-up." Dwayne didn't reply. His eyes flickered to the boy, who clutched at the fabric of his jeans with trembling hands, his wide, fearful gaze locked onto Dwayne, silently pleading for protection. That look was all the motivation Dwayne needed. Another biker charged, swinging a heavy chain with reckless abandon. The metal sliced through the air, aiming straight for Dwayne's head. Dwayne moved like lightning. He ducked beneath the swing, grabbed the chain as it came around again, and yanked hard. The biker lost his balance, stumbling forward, and Dwayne drove a sharp elbow into his ribs, sending him crumpling to the ground. The remaining bikers faltered, exchanging uneasy glances. They hadn't expected this kind of resistance. But the leader wasn't about to back down. He barked a command to his crew. "Don't just stand there. Get him! 3 bikers rushed in at once. One swung a wild punch at Dwayne's stomach. Another came from the right, wielding a crowbar. The third flanked from behind. Dwayne reacted instantly. He sidestepped the punch, caught the crowbar mid-swing, and twisted it out of the attacker's grip. With a swift, controlled motion, he swept the man's legs out from under him. Spinning on his heel, he delivered a powerful backhand to the third biker, sending him stumbling into a parked car. The boy, who had been frozen with fear, now watched in awe. For a moment, the terror in his eyes was replaced with something else, something that looked a lot like hope. Dwayne remained unshaken, his movements calculated, his strikes precise. He never hesitated, never faltered. One of the bikers, a wiry man with a snake tattoo coiling up his neck, pointed at the boy, his sneer dripping with cruelty. "Look at this little stray," he jeered. "Bet he doesn't even know his daddy." Dwayne's expression darkened. He took a step forward. His towering frame loomed over the biker, his presence suddenly suffocating. The sneer on the man's face faltered. Dwayne's voice was quiet, but the weight behind it was undeniable. "Say that again." Dwayne's eyes stayed locked on the fading red glow of the biker's taillights as they disappeared into the night. The tension in the air hadn't settled, not fully. His fists remained clenched at his sides, the adrenaline from the fight still pulsing through his veins. Beside him, the boy stood frozen, his small frame trembling with a mix of fear and something else, something closer to awe. Dwayne crouched down, resting a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. "You did good, kid," he said, his voice low, steady. "It's over now." The boy nodded slowly but said nothing. His wide eyes remained fixed on the spot where the bikers had been, like he expected them to come roaring back at any second. Dwayne followed his gaze, scanning the parking lot. The crowd that had gathered was thinning out, some still clutching their phones, whispering to each other about what they had just witnessed. A few offered him nods of respect before walking off. But Dwayne knew better than to relax. This wasn't over. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed movement. A man in a dark hoodie stepped forward from the shadows, his hands tucked into the front pocket of his sweatshirt. His face was partially hidden by the hood, but Dwayne could see the way he moved, slow, deliberate. For a brief second, Dwayne tensed. Was this someone from the gang? A straggler looking for trouble? But then, the man raised his head slightly, and his expression wasn't one of aggression, it was something else. Hesitation. Uncertainty. "You handled that well," the man said, his voice low but steady. Dwayne didn't respond right away. He kept his eyes on him, his instincts on high alert. "Something you need?" he asked evenly. The man exhaled sharply, glancing at the boy before looking back at Dwayne. "I know what it's like," he murmured. "Being that kid." Dwayne's gaze softened, just a little. The man reached into his pocket, and Dwayne instinctively shifted, ready for anything. But when the man's hand emerged, all he held was a folded bill. He knelt down, offering it to the boy. "Here, kid. Get yourself something to eat." The boy hesitated, glancing up at Dwayne, as if silently asking if it was okay. Dwayne gave a small nod. Slowly, the boy reached out and took the bill, holding it with the same cautious reverence as he had the burger earlier. "Thank you," he whispered. The man nodded once, then pulled his hood lower over his face and turned, walking away without another word. Dwayne watched him disappear into the night, then turned back to the boy. "Looks like you got people looking out for you after all," he said with a small smile. The boy clutched the bill tightly and, for the first time that night, he smiled back. Dwayne ruffled his hair. "Come on, kid. Let's get you something to eat." As they walked toward the nearest diner, Dwayne couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time he'd cross paths with those bikers. But for now, there was a kid who needed a hot meal and a reason to believe that not everyone in this world was out to knock him down. And that was enough. For now. Sprawling to the pavement. The crowd erupted in gasps and cheers as the leader clutched his stomach, struggling to get back on his feet. His gang, seeing their leader humiliated once again, hesitated. Some shifted uneasily, exchanging glances, their earlier bravado now tainted with doubt. Dwayne exhaled, rolling his shoulders back as he stood over the fallen man. "It's over," he said, his voice carrying a weight of finality. "Walk away while you still can." The leader gritted his teeth, rage flashing in his eyes, but the fight had been drained from him. He knew he had lost. He spat on the ground, glaring up at Dwayne. "This ain't over, Johnson," he snarled. "You got lucky tonight." Dwayne didn't flinch. He simply stared down at him, unwavering. "Luck had nothing to do with it," he replied coolly. Slowly, one by one, the bikers backed away, some hauling their fallen members to their feet, others avoiding Dwayne's gaze altogether. The leader staggered up, holding his ribs, and jerked his head toward his bike. "Let's go," he barked. His crew didn't argue. Engines roared to life as they mounted their motorcycles, peeling out of the parking lot in a storm of smoke and headlights. As the last bike disappeared into the night, the tension in the air finally began to ease. The crowd that had gathered burst into applause, some still recording, others shouting words of praise. "You're a legend, Rock," one voice called. "That was insane," another shouted. Dwayne, still catching his breath, turned back to the boy. The kid was staring at him, eyes wide with something that looked like admiration, and maybe a little hope. "You okay?" Dwayne asked, crouching down again. The boy nodded quickly. "Yeah," he whispered. "Thanks to you." Dwayne gave him a small smile and ruffled his hair. "You're tougher than you think, kid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The boy hesitated, then, for the first time that night, smiled back. A man from the crowd stepped forward cautiously, holding out his phone. "That was incredible, man," he said. "You really took those guys down. You're a real-life hero." Dwayne gave a small nod, not interested in the attention. "Just doing what needed to be done," he replied, his tone calm but firm. The man grinned. "This is going viral for sure. The world needs to see this." As he walked away, Dwayne sighed, running a hand over his face. The fight was over, but something about the situation still didn't sit right with him. His gaze drifted back to the kid. "You got somewhere to go?" he asked. The boy's smile faded. He shook his head, his gaze dropping to the ground. "No, sir," he whispered. Dwayne exhaled, glancing around the now quiet parking lot. He wasn't sure what to do next. He hadn't planned for any of this. But he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't about to leave the kid alone out here. "Come on," he said, standing up and offering his hand. "Let's get you something to eat." The boy looked up, hesitated, then reached out and took Dwayne's hand. As they walked toward the diner across the street, Dwayne couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time he'd see those bikers. They weren't the kind to let things go. And next time, they wouldn't come alone. But for now, there was a kid who needed a meal, and maybe, just maybe, a reason to believe that not everyone in the world was out to hurt him. And that was enough. For now. His stance unwavering, his expression calm but dangerous. The air was thick with tension, the low rumble of motorcycles now replaced by the crunch of boots against pavement as the gang closed in. Dwayne rolled his shoulders back, his gaze locked on the leader. "Last chance," he warned. "Turn around. Walk away." The leader sneered, tightening his grip on the metal pipe in his hand. "Not this time, Johnson," he spat. "This time, you're not walking away." Dwayne exhaled slowly. "So be it." The first biker lunged, swinging a chain toward Dwayne's head. But Dwayne was faster. He ducked, caught the chain mid-air, and with a powerful yank, sent the biker tumbling forward. Before the man could recover, Dwayne delivered a crushing elbow to his jaw, sending him sprawling. Another biker charged in from behind, wielding a crowbar. Dwayne pivoted just in time, catching the man's wrist and twisting it violently until the crowbar clattered to the ground. With a swift knee to the gut, he sent the attacker stumbling back into his own crew. The gang hesitated, their confidence faltering for just a moment, but the leader wasn't done. "Don't just stand there. Take him down," he barked. 3 more came at once. One swung a bat, another aimed a wild punch, and the third tried to tackle Dwayne from the side. Dwayne ducked under the bat, deflecting the punch before driving his fist into the attacker's ribs. Using the momentum, he grabbed the third man mid-charge, flipping him over onto the pavement with a thunderous slam. The fight was chaos, bats swinging, chains snapping through the air, but Dwayne was a force of nature. Every move was precise, every counter calculated. One by one, the bikers fell. Some groaned in pain, others scrambled to back away. But there were too many. A blow finally connected, a pipe struck Dwayne's shoulder, forcing him to stagger back. Another biker seized the opening, ramming into him. Dwayne gritted his teeth as he was forced against his car, the gang swarming around him. The leader stepped forward, grinning triumphantly as he pulled a knife from his belt. "This ends now," he hissed. But before he could strike, the wail of sirens cut through the night. Flashing red and blue lights filled the parking lot. The gang froze. Multiple police cars skidded to a halt, doors flying open as officers poured out, weapons drawn. Hands in the air. Now, a commanding voice boomed. Dwayne exhaled, rolling his shoulders back. Finally. The bikers hesitated for a split second before scrambling, some bolting toward their bikes, others throwing down their weapons in surrender. The leader's eyes darted around, his grip tightening on the knife. "Drop it," an officer shouted, aiming directly at him. For a moment, it looked like the leader might run, but then he saw the look on Dwayne's face. Calm. Steady. Unshaken. With a curse under his breath, he tossed the knife to the ground and raised his hands. The officers moved in swiftly, forcing the gang onto their knees, cuffing them one by one. The leader was dragged up to his feet, his face twisted in rage. "This ain't over, Johnson," he spat. "You think you won? You just made an enemy." Dwayne stepped closer, his voice low, unwavering. "I don't need to win," he said. "I just needed to end it." The leader was shoved into the back of a police car, the doors slamming shut behind him. As the chaos died down, an officer approached Dwayne, giving him a nod. "Looks like you handled yourself just fine," he said. "But you should know, this guy's got a record. You might want to watch your back." Dwayne sighed, rolling out his sore shoulder. "I always do." Then, he turned toward the diner. Through the window, the boy sat at a table, a burger in front of him, his eyes wide as he watched everything unfold. When Dwayne stepped through the door, the kid instantly stood up. "Are you okay?" the boy asked, his voice small but filled with concern. Dwayne gave a small smile. "Yeah, kid. I'm good." The boy hesitated, then nodded. He looked down at the food in front of him before glancing back up. "You hungry?" he asked, sliding the extra burger across the table. Dwayne chuckled, shaking his head as he sat down. "Yeah," he said, finally letting the tension ease. "I think I could eat." As they sat together, the chaos of the night fading behind them, Dwayne realized something. He hadn't just stepped in to protect the kid tonight. He'd given him something more. A reason to believe in something better. Dwayne's eyes stayed locked on the gang leader. "Last warning, walk away," he said, his voice firm. The leader sneered. "Or what? Gonna call the cops? Maybe hit us with one of your fake wrestling moves?" The bikers laughed, taunting him. Dwayne didn't flinch. As the first biker swung a metal pipe, he dodged smoothly, catching the weapon midair and wrenching it away before striking the man's knees, dropping him. Another attacked with a chain, Dwayne sidestepped and landed a brutal elbow to his face. The crowd had returned, phones recording. "Get him, Rock," someone shouted. 2 more bikers charged with bats. Dwayne ducked the first swing, blocked the second with his forearm, then hurled one attacker into the other. A third came at him with a crowbar. Dwayne deflected and countered with a powerful punch to the ribs, sending the man sprawling. Despite the gang's numbers, Dwayne moved with precision, dropping them one by one. The leader watched in frustration. "What the hell are you waiting for?" he roared. "Take him down." But the bikers hesitated. Dwayne had shown them what they were up against. Sensing their wavering confidence, Dwayne pressed forward, disarming another attacker and breaking a bat over his knee. "You're done," he warned. "Walk away." The leader, seething, refused to back down. "This isn't over," he growled, pulling a knife. Dwayne's gaze darkened. "You really want to do this?" The leader lunged, but Dwayne was faster. He caught his wrist, twisted it until the knife clattered to the ground, then shoved him backward. The leader stumbled, looking around at his fallen crew, his bravado crumbling. "Take your guys and go," Dwayne said. "This is your last chance." Humiliated, the leader spat on the ground. "We're leaving," he snarled, "but this isn't over." The gang retreated, muttering curses as they climbed onto their bikes and roared off into the night. Dwayne watched them disappear, knowing this wasn't the last he'd see of them. Trouble always had a way of coming back. As the crowd dispersed, the boy emerged from McDonald's, clutching a bag of food. "They're gone?" he asked. "For now," Dwayne nodded. The boy hesitated, then looked up at him. "Thanks for everything." Dwayne crouched down, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, kid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The boy bit his lip. "You won't leave, right? You'll stay?" Dwayne nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." As they walked toward his car, Dwayne couldn't shake the feeling that the bikers weren't done. And next time, they'd come back with more. The final showdown. Minutes later, the distant rumble of engines returned, louder this time. Dwayne's jaw tightened as 20 motorcycles rolled into the parking lot, headlights casting long shadows. The leader, now with reinforcements, dismounted first, sneering. "Thought you could humiliate me and walk away," he spat. "Not happening." Dwayne straightened. "You had your chance to leave," he said. "You chose not to take it." The leader laughed coldly. "No cameras, no fans. Just you against us. Let's see how tough you really are." He raised a hand. "Get him." The bikers charged. Dwayne met them head-on, a storm of calculated force. He caught a bat mid-swing, ripped it from an attacker's hands, and took him down in one move. Another swung a chain, Dwayne ducked and landed a devastating kick to his chest. A third rushed with a crowbar, but Dwayne sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and threw him over his shoulder. Inside the diner, the boy watched in awe from the window, his breath fogging the glass. He wanted to run, but he couldn't leave Dwayne alone. The fight was relentless. Dwayne moved with precision and power, dropping bikers left and right. But they kept coming. A pipe struck his shoulder, forcing him back. Another attacker tackled him against his car. Then, sirens. Flashing red and blue filled the lot. Hands in the air, officers shouted as they stormed in, weapons drawn. The gang froze. Some tried to run, but the cops cut them off. The leader, gripping a knife, hesitated. "Drop it." For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. With a curse, he tossed the knife and raised his hands. The officers arrested the gang, dragging the leader to a squad car. He locked eyes with Dwayne one last time. "You'll regret this," he spat. Dwayne didn't blink. "It's over. A new beginning." Dwayne walked back inside, where the boy waited anxiously. "They're gone," the boy whispered. "For good," Dwayne assured him. The boy hesitated, then managed a small smile. "Thanks, Dwayne." Dwayne ruffled his hair. "Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing." The boy tilted his head. "What?" Dwayne leaned in. "Never let fear stop you from standing up for what's right." The boy's smile grew. "I promise." As they left the diner, Dwayne's phone buzzed. The fight had gone viral, headlines and videos flooded social media. Dwayne Johnson takes down biker gang. The Rock shows real-life heroism. The boy saw the screen and grinned. Looks like everyone knows now. Dwayne chuckled, shaking his head. Guess there's no hiding from it. He glanced at the kid. You ready to get out of here? The boy nodded. Yeah. Let's go. As they drove off, the city lights flickered behind them. For the first time in a long while, the boy felt safe. And for Dwayne, it wasn't just about the fight, it was about proving that one act of courage can change everything. Because real strength isn't just about power. It's about standing up for those who can't.